Okay, so in this video I'm just going to have a look at some decimals, percentages and fractions, what each one is and how you would convert from one to the other. So let's start by looking at decimals. So if we take a number, let's say we'll take four numbers to the left of the decimal point. So let's take 1, 2, 3, 4 and then we'll put in our decimal point and let's put in 5, 6, 7 and 8 on this side of the decimal point. So this number here is 1234.5678. Now if we look at the individual numbers here, excuse me, look at the individual numbers here. If we look at this 1 here, for example, the 1 here, we can say that's 1000. So that would be our 1000 place, if you like. So that would be 1000. If we look at the 2, that will give us 200. So that would be our 100 place, our 100. I'll just put that in as our 100, if you like, our 100 place here. The 3 here would just be, that would give us our tens. That would give us our tens place. So we have 3 tens, we have 2 hundreds, we have 1000. And let's just look at this 4 here. So the 4 then is our units. So that would give us our units. So we have our decimal point then, and then we have these four numbers on the right hand side of the decimal point. So we take the 5 first of all, that's 5 tenths. So that would give us our tenth. So that would be 5 tenths. If we look at the 6 here, that would give us our 6 hundredths. So that would give us our hundredths place. TH there, so that would be 6 hundredths. If we look at the 7, the 7 then would give us our thousandths. So that would be 1000th. So that's just simply 7 over 1000. And then our 8, lastly, that would be our 10,000th. So that's 10,000th. So that would be 8 divided by 10,000. So here we have 1000, we have 2 hundredths, we have 3 tens, we have 4 units, and then we have our decimal point. We have 5 tenths, 6 100ths, 7 1000ths, and 8 10,000ths. So we can go on forever in both directions, but I've just done 4 on the left, 4 on the right. So this would give us an example of what a decimal number is, or a number in decimal form. Let's have a look at percentages then. So if we were to take percentages, I'm going to look at percentages. So let's take some examples of percentages. Let's take, for example, we'll take a simple one. Let's take 10%. Well, per just means it's equivalent to out of, and cent is just 100. So we're looking at 10 out of 100. In other words, we're looking at 10 whatever out of 100 whatever, 10 units out of 100 units, 10 items over 100 10 items over 100 items, and so on. So that's all percentages. So if we have 23%, that just means 23 divided by 100, 23 out of 100. 45% just means 45 out of 100. The last thing we're just going to have a quick look at is fractions. And I've already looked at some fractions here under percentages. So a fraction is just simply a quotient or a division. So we have, within fractions, we have a numerator, and on the bottom of the fraction we have what's called a denominator. So for example, if we have 2 divided by 3, 2 over 3, this is a fraction. It's 2 divided by 3. This line here just means we're dividing 2 by 3. These are also called rational numbers. Rational numbers, and they're just numbers that can be written in the form p over q. Let's say any number p over q, where p and q are both integers. P and q are both elements of z, and the denominator can't be 0. So this would be our definition of rational numbers here, if you like. We've got numbers that look like this here, where you've got a number divided by a number, and the number on the top, the numerator, and the number on the bottom, the denominator, are both integers. They're both elements of z, and you can't divide by 0, so q here cannot be 0. So these are fractions. So let's just look at doing some conversions from decimals to fractions to percentages and so on. So let's just write them down first. So let's put decimals here anyway. Let's put fractions here in the middle. And we'll put percentages over here. So these are our 3 types that we're going to look at. And let's look at just converting from one to the other. So let's take some examples. Let's start with a decimal. Let's take 0.13. So this is our decimal number. Now if we want to convert that to a fraction, remember we said at the beginning that this number here, 1, is 1/10, and this 3 here would be 3/100ths. So really this 0.13 here is just, as a fraction, would just be 13 divided by 100. You can see there are 2 numbers after the decimal point here, so there are 2 zeros here on the number that you divide. You just write down a 1 and then 2 zeros. So if you want to convert to a percentage, well look, we already have this number out of 100. We have 13 out of 100, so that's just simply 13%. 13%. Now if you want to convert, so that's going this way. If you want to convert this way, so let's say we have 13%. Well, as I say, 13% just means 13 out of 100, so you just write it 13 over 100, 13 divided by 100. And then if you wanted to convert to a decimal, well, a couple of ways of doing this. If you take the 13, the decimal point, if you just take the number 13, any whole number, the decimal point is just going to be after the last number here. So the decimal point is going to be here. 13 is 13.000 and so on. Now if you divide a number by 100, what you effectively do is you take the decimal point and you move it to the left 2 places, because there are 2 zeros. So you're going to move the decimal point here and then here, and what you end up with then is 0.13. Okay, let's have a look at another one. Let's take 0.056 as a fraction then. Let's see what we would do with that. Well, we can see here we have 3 numbers after the decimal point. So I'm going to take 56, put it over. Well, because we have 3 numbers after the decimal point, I'm going to write down a 1 with 3 zeros on the bottom here. And this is my fraction. Now I can simplify that. Most calculators, if you type this into your calculator, 56 divided by 1000, it will simplify it for you. But I can see here that I can divide the top and the bottom. So I can take the top here, I can divide the top by 2, and I can divide the bottom by 2 as well. So if I divide the top by 2, I'll get 28. Let me just do that in white. Change the color here, so we're going to get 28. And on the bottom here, we'll get 500. Now you can probably spot here again that you can divide again by 2. So we can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. And again, we'll get, let's see, 14 over 250. And we can just divide again by 2 and again by 2. Or you may have spotted that you can just divide by a particular number rather than dividing by 2 each time. Let's see. Here we're just going to get 7 over 125, and I think that's as far as we can go. So this is the simplified version of this fraction here. Now if you want to convert to a, well, let's say we have a decimal, we have a fraction, we want to convert to a percentage then. So percentage just means out of 100. So if we take our fraction here, 7 over 125, because I don't have 100 on the bottom here, it's a little bit trickier. So what you can do is just, this is a fraction of one whole, of one unit, if you like. So what you can do then is just simply multiply this by 100%. So this, you want to get this fraction of 100%. So what you can do is multiply by 100. And if you take 7 divided by 125, or 7 over 125, multiply that by 100, you'll get, sorry, 7 divided by 125, and then multiply that by 100, you will get 5.6%. 5.6%. Okay, so we've converted this way. So we've actually ended up down here and then up here, if you like. So 0.056 is 56 over 1,000. When you simplify that fraction, you'll get as far as 7 over 125. To convert that to a percentage, I should say, just simply multiply by 100, by 100%. You might have spotted as well here that you could go from here. You could just take the decimal point here, which is just after the 56. Divide the top by 10 and you'll get 5.6. Divide the bottom by 10 and you'll get 5.6 over 100. So that will give you 5.6 over 100, which is 5.6 out of 100, which is your definition, if you like, of percentage. So it's 5.6%. Okay, let's have a look at another one. Let's take one more. Let's take a decimal as 0.6. Okay, so let's convert that to a fraction. Okay, so if we're going this way, that's just 6 divided by 10. That would be 6 over 10. We're looking at one decimal place, one place after the decimal point. So this would be 6/10. This place here would be the tenths place, so that would be 6 over 10. Now again, that's just 3 over 5. If you divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, you'll get 3 over 5. Now you've probably spotted as well, if you want to convert that to a percentage then, well, you can just take your 3/5. You can take your 3/5, which is your fraction, and you want that fraction of 100%. So just simply multiply by 100. In maths, usually the word of, if you're getting 3/5 of 100, it just means 3/5 multiplied by 100. So I get 3/5 of 100%. So that would be 3 divided by 5, and then just multiply by 100, and you get 60%. So this would be 60%. Okay, let's have a look at another one. This time maybe I'll start with a fraction and just convert from there. So let's take, okay, let's pick 2/3. Okay, 2/3. Now I want to convert that, let's say, to a decimal first of all. Okay, so decimal. So what does 2 over 3 actually mean? It just means 2 divided by 3. So you can just take your calculator, take 2 divided by 3, and you'll get 0.66666, and it just goes on forever, recurring decimal. So you'll get 0.6, and the 6 will repeat. So just you can put a little dot over the 6 here, it just means that 6 is repeating. So that would be it as a decimal. If you want to convert to a percentage, just take the 2/3 and multiply by 100. So if you take 2/3, multiply by 100, you get 2 divided by 3, then just multiply by 100, and you'll get 66.6, and the 6 will repeat. That will be your percentage. The 6 here will just repeat. Okay, so let's have a look at another couple of numbers. Let's start with, let's say we start with a percentage this time. So let's start with 35%. So you want to convert this, let's say, to a fraction first. So we're going to go this way here. So as I said earlier, percent just means out of 100. So we're just going to take the 35 and put it over 100. And that's it as a fraction. Usually you would be expected to simplify that. So you can see you can divide the numerator here by 5 to give you 7. And you can divide the denominator by 5, and that'll give you 20. Now to convert to a decimal then, you can see that you've got your 35 on the top. Well, we'll do both of these actually. We'll do this one here first. If you take the 35 over 100, so we're going to we'll go down here first. 35 over 100. The decimal point on the 35 is going to be here. We're dividing by 100, so what you're going to do is take the decimal point and move it 2 places to the left, because you're dividing by 100, 2 zeros. So what you get if you do that is 0.35. Okay, but what if you were starting from here, what would you do? Well, what you can do here is just simply divide 20 into 7. Remember, this line here just means dividing. So on your calculator, you can just take 7 and divide by 20, and that'll also give you 0.35. Okay, let's do one last one then, and we'll finish up. So let's take another percentage. Let's take I don't know, 72%, let's say. Okay, so let's convert to a fraction. So again, percent just means out of 100, so we're just going to take the 72 and divide by 100. So there's our fraction. Again, it's not in its simplest form. We can divide the top and the bottom by, well, the obvious one here would be 2, so we can divide the top by 2, we can divide the bottom by 2. You must divide the top and the bottom by the same number, by the way, otherwise you're changing the fraction, you're producing a different fraction. So divide the top by 2 and we'll get 36, divide the bottom by 2, you'll get 50. And you can probably spot again there that you can divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2 again, and that will give us another fraction, well, the same fraction, just simplified. That'll give us 18 over 25, and there's nothing more you can do with that particular one. Now if you want to convert then to a decimal, so let's go this way. Well, if you start from here, you've got 72 divided by 100. Now that's 72 again. It's a whole number here, so your decimal point will be here. Usually I don't put it in. The decimal point is here. You're dividing by 100, so there are 2 zeros, so you're going to take the decimal point, move it 1 place left, 2 places left, and it's going to end up here. So our decimal version of 72% will be 0.72. And again, here if you're starting here, for example, just take 18, divide 25 into it. So 18 divided by 25 will also give you 0.72. That's really it, I think, for decimals, percentages, and fractions.